And it looks like we're live from Domain 17, Oklahoma City, or thereabouts. We have on-site guests today. Karen's hosting, and we have Lora and Jenna and Jarrett on site. I'll do a quick go around with our virtual folks to quickly introduce themselves, and then we'll hand it off to Karen and the on-site folks. We'll start off with Christian.
Hi everyone, glad to be connecting to you from Oklahoma and elsewhere. I'm Christian from Hamburg here in Germany, where we have a sunny 17 degrees, and really looking forward to connecting, especially since there are a couple of people who I haven't met yet and virtually connecting. So looking forward to that.
And Christina?
Oh, hi, Christina Hendricks. I teach philosophy at University of British Columbia in Vancouver, that's in Canada. And I think it's about 17 degrees here too.
Hi folks, my name's Clint Lalonde. I'm the Manager of Educational Technologies at an organization called BC Campus, located in Victoria, British Columbia. And I'm also Associate Faculty with the School of Education and Technology at Royal Roads University.
And Jenny?
Hi, I'm Jenny Heyman. I work at eCampus Ontario, and that's a fairly new role for me as a program manager. And I am an online learning designer by trade and profession.
And Patrice?
Hi, Patrice Presco. I'm an instructional designer at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. And I think it's probably around 70 degrees Fahrenheit here today with strong possibility of thunderstorms.
Nice. We'll stick with the Celsius since I'm Canadian, but I live in Guadalajara, Mexico, where I'm coming from, and I think it's about 26 degrees Celsius today so far. And I'll hand it off to Karen and the on-site folks.
Okay, hi, I'm Karen Cangelosi, the on-site buddy for this session here in Oklahoma City at the Domains Conference. And I think we have about 27 degrees Celsius too, so pretty close to where you are. Temperature-wise, that's about 80 or so Fahrenheit. I just looked that up. And, so I think I'll actually have them introduce themselves. So Laura, you want to start?
Hi everyone, I'm Lora Taub and I am a professor at Muhlenberg College in Media and Communication, where I also am the Associate Dean for Digital Learning, and really happy to be here today.
Hi, I'm Jenna Azar. I'm at Muhlenberg College as well, and I'm an instructional designer there, and support our digital learning assistants.
I'm Jarrett Azar. I'm a rising sophomore at Muhlenberg, and I plan on majoring in computer science and studio art with a focus in photography. So yeah.
Rising sophomore.
Yeah.
Excellent. It's great to have student voice. I teach computing science, so you can talk online with me later, Jarrett. So why don't you let us know what you're working on there and what you're showing at Domain 17?
Well, I guess we'll start with what you're working on right now, and then we'll go from there.
Well, we were over in the fair this morning of some of the work we're doing with domains in the fall, integrating domain of one's own with a digital archives project. A lot of students at Muhlenberg last semester organized buses and carpools to go to DC to march in the Women's Movement March on Washington in January. They also went to sister marches in nearby cities and the Climate March. And so there's this, you know, a little bit of burgeoning activism happening at Muhlenberg. Leave it to our archivists to say, well, what is going to be the record of all of this activism? Where is this going to live in our campus history? And we don't have a very good campus history of documenting and archiving that student engagement and student activism. So we're teaching a course called Documentary Archives and Activism that is going to integrate working with students to build a digital archive of some of those objects, the pink hats, images, social media, and to layer into that digital archive oral histories that students are going to conduct in the fall with community members who attended or participated in some way in any of those marches and protests. Students in that class are going to have their own domain and be able to pull from the digital archives that they're helping to build artifacts, elements to construct their own exhibits, their own multimodal compositions on their domains, to help produce a record, their own record of the student protests since the election in 2016. So the fair was giving people a chance to play with some of our tools. We showed them the Shared Shelf Commons, where we're building the digital archive in the Shared Shelf platform, publishing to the Commons in the DPLA, Digital Public Library of America. And we also have this really cool listening station, which is basically an iPad loaded with an app for recording either audio or video stories or oral history interviews. So we gathered a few of those interviews over in the fair. We had some really great conversations. A lot of librarians and archivists are here. And so this project in many ways is a scheme to collaborate with the archivists and librarians who we love to collaborate with. And it was great to have so many librarians and archivists at Domain 17 stopping by to share their knowledge. One of the things we're here to do.
Jarrett and I will be presenting tomorrow, and we're really focused on the ways that students are supporting one another in their domain. So alongside the launch of Domain of One's Own at Muhlenberg was the launch of our Digital Learning Assistant Program, which is a peer-supported program that focuses on helping students who are, taking their first steps into domains in their classes or their programs or in other spaces by resourcing them with other students who maybe are a little bit further along in their development and a little bit more knowledgeable about the back end of the Installatron and some of the things that are possible. So Jarrett is a digital learning assistant and proudly also my son. And so we will be presenting tomorrow to talk about the growth of that program at Muhlenberg, really built off of the work of Martha Burtis and others who have come before us in thinking about peer learning possibilities in this work. Do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered it.
Okay. So we're happy to take questions.
I just have a quick question here. Can you tell me what the Shared Shelf Commons is? I haven't heard that before.
Shared Shelf is a platform for building digital archives. It is an art store product, I should say. I'm not sure. I think it costs about $7,000 a year for institutions to subscribe to Shared Shelf. We're part of a consortium of liberal arts colleges working in Shared Shelf to build digital collections that are published to the Shared Shelf Commons and therefore accessible not only to students, faculty, staff on our campus, but open to the world, which is what we liked about Shared Shelf Commons compared to other digital archive platforms and systems.
Great, thank you.
I wanted to hear more from the student voice side of things. Jarrett, what do you think about all this?
Just one question, because Laura, what you said in your course, it reminded me very much of the one of the latest blog posts by Alan Levine from I think last week, when he talked about digital activism and MOOCs and PowerPoint and all that. And I was wondering whether you could share a story or two on the greater public, so to speak, and their activism, how that happened through their domains, or if you can share anything about that.
If you could just repeat the last part of your question, because it trailed off.
Okay, sure. So my question basically is, what kinds of experience have your students and you yourself as their teacher made in engaging the greater public in their activism through their domains, basically?
Well, this will be our first step in the fall. And we were thrilled when we saw Alan's post because it really articulated and gave voice to a lot of the things that have gone into designing the curriculum for the course and the pedagogy for the course. Students on our campus, students in our department often produce digital stories that connect with social justice issues. At the moment, those digital stories reside maybe in their Google Drive, on the hard drive in my office where I've been archiving those stories. They're not yet publicly available. And so this is our first intentional effort, our archivists, to say, can we build an archive that is a resource for students to build projects on their domains that are shared openly. We'll be blogging about the experience and sharing that stuff out with the hashtag domains resist. So maybe come September, we'll have more to share with you. Thanks, Christian.
Ken, what was your question again? We're sorry.
So I wanted to kind of hear the students' side of this. Jarrett, what do you think about all this, about sharing openly what you're working on?
To share openly and having my own domain and using that in a way that has been beneficial to me has been interesting. And I think it's students a space to be open and to use the internet in a way that professional or personal spaces. And yeah, I think it's very interesting what we're doing. And I think it's great to give students this voice. And I think it's great to give students the space on the internet to really foster something more than something like a Twitter or an Instagram would allow you to. So. Right.
In particular, like as computer scientists, we're used to sharing our code via GitHub, or some people aren't, and they're just learning this. But when I've had my students blog about their computer science work, everyone thinks it's kind of weird that there's these computer geeks that are actually talking about what they're doing and not just the code that they're sharing. So I'd be curious to see what your viewpoint is on that and your colleagues in school while you go through this.
Right. So I haven't done much blogging about specifically what I've done in computer science. I've done a couple writing blogs about, because as a DLA, I help other students. And we wrote this article about how there's a lot of students that come in, they have their own MacBook, they have their own phone, they can operate it perfectly. And then they say, I'm not very tech savvy. And I was like, well, you kind of are, because you can do all this, right? And being able to write in a space where I could say, look, we are all tech savvy if we're able to do these things and we're able to operate, even the TV at home or, your phone or your computer. And it's very interesting to write in that way and think about societal things relating to technology in that way. And I do plan on blogging about computer science and coding, but do it in a way that is accessible to others that aren't just computer geeks like us, and make it English, because that's a little different. That's a little difficult to do when it comes to computer science and anything technology, really. So.
Cool. I look forward to that. One of my students shared trying to explain the denial of service attack that happened back in the fall, and she explained it based on a taco stand. And her mom really enjoyed it and understood a little bit better what a denial of service attack is based on that blog post.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Patrice can testify that there are so many valuable applications to educate you with the taco truck metaphor.
That's right. So that's a great segue, actually. So I have a question just about the kind of curriculum applications that can happen with the interdisciplinary, talking with journalism students, talking about discernment, right? And what's a high quality story versus, with that's fact checked and those kinds of things. So what kind of a mix do you have in mind for the curriculum applications?
The Department of Media and Communication is implementing Domain of One's Own as a department-wide initiative. So students who and communication major, which is like the third largest major on our campus, throughout their entire experience in the major, be entering into classes and co-curricular activities where domains is really situated at the center of our efforts to foster students' identities as media makers, as media producers, but to your question, Jenny, to foster their identities as ethical story makers and ethical media makers. So in terms of curricular integration, in their writing courses, in their documentary courses, in courses on media representation, they have all these different angles to think about, make media on a domain, to share media, to share other people's stories, and to do that in a way that that is both open and also ethical, that does justice to the stories that they're representing. Our hope is that by taking this program wide in media and communication, that it'll help maybe encourage other departments, other faculty, integrating domains in their courses. We've seen some faculty in history, in the sciences at Muhlenberg are really actively getting involved in domains. Students are blogging about science for a public audience. I think back to Jarrett's earlier comment, integrating their domains in their course experience, students in biochemistry, for example, are writing about biochemistry for a non-science audience. So I think taking the curriculum more deeply into their own language and lexicon to be able to share it with non-specialists.
Lora, what have been the, you've talked about trying to get more faculty involved. What are the barriers and challenges you're facing? And as you were just talking about the students blogging, I was wondering if you could speak to why you think that's taken off because of domain of one's own, as opposed to them just, say, blogging using WordPress that's already out there.
Well, one of the things that is most excited, the 12 or so faculty at this point, we just started domains in the spring, and there are 12 faculty actively creating their own domains and integrating it in their courses. The biggest draw for them is to work with students like Jarrett. So if Jarrett can come into my class and do a workshop alongside me, alongside Jenna, students are so much more interested in learning from Jarrett than me. It's a little soul crushing to say that. But it's really exciting to open my class up to the possibility of students as co-teachers, as collaborators. They know better than anyone how to introduce this work, to connect with students around this work. And so in terms of barriers, Patrice, support is always a barrier. Who is going to support this when it crashes, when it doesn't work the way I want it to? Who's going to support this? To be able to say students are the sort of front line of not just support, but just collaboration. Faculty are really excited about that. In the same way that writing assistants partner with faculty in writing courses. In 1 year, the digital learning assistants, Jarrett is one of 8, have really developed a professional identity on campus that faculty are really admiring and wanting to. It's about wanting to connect with students like Jarrett as much as the technology itself. And maybe I'll let Jarrett speak to the question about blogs versus WordPress, or domains versus WordPress.
Sure, yeah, totally. I think it's a very different thing to have set up the Installatron and things like that. Even for me, I think just going on and building my own WordPress would be very different than the setup that we've had from Muhlenberg and the support and the structure that we've set up for that. Even for me, I have my main site, which just has an about me and ways to contact me, site, and a site where I put photography, shot, edited, and put up a set of photos just for my domain because I wanted it to live there. I didn't want it to live anywhere else. And I think that's very different than, you could do that on WordPress for sure, but I think integrating it into the school and knowing that this is something that is also connected to Muhlenberg and the way that Muhlenberg will see me, in that it can be personal, but it also can be professional. And I think it's a much more rooted system than just going on and being like, I want to start a WordPress.
So that was related to the question that I had. So thank you very much. My question was, we have a WordPress install at our university. I'm not sure how many universities might have that, but so students can create blogs already, at the university. And I was wondering, first of all, what's better about having a domain than just having a blog, but you've already kind of answered that. But then sort of moving a little bit further than that, what else are students doing on their domains besides, say, adding a WordPress site? So what other kinds of things are being put onto the domain?
I think you can speak a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're just beginning to, we certainly recognized WordPress as a sort of foundation, right? And that's something that many students have been exposed to or are somewhat familiar with. It also is fairly user-friendly and intuitive on good days, I guess. And so, not most of the students who are coming into domains sort of begin there. What I think is really valuable is that you kind of, you desire, you hope for more as you get up and running with WordPress, right? And all of a sudden you want to do these other things. And we have not, at least at Muhlenberg, allowed the full WordPress to students. And so the thing I think that's really important about domains is that one, WordPress is one thing, but it also has so many other applications. So we've done data visualization work, and Scalar and Omeka have been integrated in other courses. And so all of a sudden, even if the student is coming into domains and they're starting with WordPress, they know that more is possible, and they also see that people are exploring these other tracks. And so it becomes a sort of grow with me model, right? Which is, I can start here with WordPress, but then when that sort of feels like it's maybe a little tight and not where I want to be, I can grow it in all of these ways. And I think that's the beauty of domains at a four-year institution in particular, that students can sort of ramp that forward in their classes, and we're just beginning to see what's possible with those things as well.
Christina, I'll just add that, if a student signs up for a WordPress blog at Muhlenberg, they have very limited access beyond picking a theme. They have very limited access to the kinds of customization that various plugins are going to allow, that, you can walk into our digital learning assistant suite, we call it the Hive, on any given day, and the students are like swapping plugins. They've like figured out, they're so far ahead of most of us in terms of experimenting with different plugins, ways to really rebuild the back end of their WordPress blog that isn't available to them and not available to faculty either. So we got into domains because we had a group of faculty, 4 or 5, trying to build Omeka projects, Scalar projects, going to the former instructional technologist, install this plugin, I need this. And then the answer would be, I can't do that because it might break the whole system.
Right.
And with domains, nobody has to ask permission for anybody else. And if you break it, you've only broke your own, and that's good. So we take to heart Martha Burtis's reflections in last year's Digital Pedagogy Institute keynote, where she said, if an administrator says to you, if we go with domains, what happens if people break it? And she said, then you say, good, because breaking it is part of digital literacy. You break it, and now we're going to sit down and figure out how to fix it. And I mean, Jarrett has been
I've broken it.
fixing things since we got started, and And
yeah,
so,
we sort of celebrate it. We cheer in the suite, right? So, oh my gosh, I broke my domain, and we're all like, woo! We had one student who broke it 3 times during her shift, and so we gave her a sticker. You know, I mean, just the way in which that that sort of ethos becomes part of the way you learn online and engage and part of the way you build things, right? It's hard. It's, you know, and so we celebrate all of those challenges as well. But that's also, I think, what the students experience when they come in and they say, and they're holding their laptop and they have a project due in a couple days or a couple hours, and they go, I broke it. And we go, awesome, what'd you do? So we are also, I think, cultivating a kind of curiosity and a willingness to troubleshoot and figure out and go with what, you know, where the students are. Hopefully will inspire the campus to take some risks and push their own skills further.
Okay, thank you. That was great. I love it. Just go ahead and break it.
Yeah.
I think it's super important to break things to learn. In comp sci, I know there's a class that I'll be taking soon where we literally just build our own database and then hack it. And that's to show where your weaknesses lie and where the whole system's weaknesses lie, and to show where you can build stronger on your own domain. And so yeah, it's always fun to break it. And
I was wondering if we could go back to the student perspective, but about your experience at the conference. You know, we frequently say there aren't enough student voices at the conference, and I was just wondering what your experience has been. I know you've only been there a little while, but what has it been so far?
So far, I totally agree. I think there needs to be more student voice at conferences. I think that it sounds weird to say it because I am a student, but I think that students have a very interesting perspective on things like conferences and things like meeting other people that are involved with domains and meeting the faculty at other universities that are involved with domains, because you can get a little, not that, I mean, obviously we do, sometimes you can get a little bubbly and you can get a little around domains and what you can do with them and what you should be doing with them, and to meet other faculty that are, here's what we did with our domains, and we incorporated all of this Galileo stuff at the one station, and that's what we had our students do. And seeing other faculty incorporate domains in different ways really breaks down what you can do and what you should be doing with them, right? And so I think having student voice at conferences and having students see universities doing the same thing really opens up a lot of opportunities for me to go back and talk about this and go back to Muhlenberg and tell other DLAs about, you know, what other organizations were doing with domains. And I think it's very important to get students here and get their perspective on these kind of things.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. I think if we see students as central to the success of things like domain of one's own, and then they aren't present, or central to these community building spaces, I think we're missing some really critical opportunities to inspire students to push the boundaries of what's possible. Jarrett is the only student I've seen so far at this conference, and I think, you know, that needs to be a priority, particularly where the model is shaped by student agency and the model is shaped by wanting to give students access. Then I think it's really critical that they're central to how we see community. And right now, community is faculty and staff, and then the students are this other piece, and they can build community on campus, but they're not building those connections necessarily. And so hopefully domains and other spaces will continue to push to figure out, you know, I'd be like, there's some folks who are literally like bringing the stars onto their domain. We got work to do, right? And we'll be like, okay, what do we have to do?
Excellent. I missed about 5 minutes there as I muted myself, or I deafened myself trying to get my students to listen in what we were talking about, but failed. And I'm back. It was a great point, Jarrett, about you need to break things. I really, really, really love that. It's really important, and we teach that in computing science, but I think it's we need to give students the ability to know that it's okay to fail. It's okay to break things. It's okay to do things wrong, but learn from it. And we don't give them enough opportunities to do that. So great. Thanks for that. I'm going to take that clip and show it to my students.
We're just reading the side panel here to see.
We're going to go out and break some stuff.
Yeah.
I've been known to break a few WordPress instances.
All right. Anything else you want to leave us with, or anyone want a last question? I don't want to take out too much of your time. We're running on the half hour here. Folks on the virtual side, anything burning? Anything you want to add for us on site there?
I don't think so.
Just, you know, there's a lot of people tweeting, sharing out what they're going to be presenting today and tomorrow. We'll have some stuff going out at Domains Resist. So other ways to stay connected. I think you're going to see a lot of blogs. Adam Kroom this morning in introducing the conference asked everybody to share generously. So you're going to see a lot of blogs from Domain 17.
Excellent.
Other ways to experience it.
Great. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thanks
Thanks
for
to
having
Karen
us.
and Ken for
Thank
hosting
you, guys.
us. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Ken,
much,
for all your
Laura
work.
and Jen and Jarrett and Karen. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, take care then. Bye-bye.
Cheers. I'll let them drop off.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
Patrice.
Patrice.
Thanks, Karen. Have fun. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. I deafened myself for a few minutes there. That was a total fail. I unplugged my headphones trying to get my students to listen, but then I couldn't hear. Oops. Oh, well.
I'm so
happens?
excited about digital learning assistants. Holy
Yeah.
cow. I'm so excited about that. That's the next thing I'm doing at eCampus Ontario, all over the 45 institutions. You need one of these, you need 10 of them.
Awesome. What else did you get out that I missed there for a few minutes?
Did you miss where they were talking about the importance of breaking things?
I got that. I just tweeted it out as well, and I quoted Jarrett there and tagged him on a tweet, because that's just awesome. That I say that all the time, and it doesn't matter if I say it. I want to hear a student say it, so that was perfect.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about where do students go from installing WordPress, because WordPress is kind of, you know, the more familiar thing, and what people understand. It's a blogging platform, among other things. And then what else, you know, do they move on to do on their domains? And basically, you know, they've just started in their project there, so they've got a lot of time to kind of move students through. But the idea was to start with WordPress and then go on to other things, perhaps. And one thing that stood out for me that really fit with my experience was, you know, like I said, we have a blogging platform. It's the servers are housed here on campus. We have a WordPress install, but I can't just go add plugins. You know, I can't play that much. I have a very limited set of themes I can use and a very limited set of plugins. And if I want to do anything else, I have to ask. And then, you know, the question is it going to break everything else? So I really, that fit to me very interestingly, because that's the reason why I went off and got my own domain.
Right.
So I could play more, right? And I've been thinking about whether, you know, we might want to push to try to do some domain of one's own stuff at our institution, and trying to figure out what would be the argument for why that's necessary. So I'm still working on that one.
And I still think there's a balance there. I mean, if it's being hosted by the university and it's not really your own.
No.
So there's that whole discussion there, but then other people say, but then it's just easier for the student, and there's this whole trade-off. But I'd rather offer both. And we don't. I haven't gotten enough support to do it institutionally here. I'm just doing it kind of myself. But I think it's really important that it's not their own, and students feel it's being hosted by the university, then it's not mine. And there is a lot of that pushback, and I'm wondering how the pushback is from the institutions that are actually implementing it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And I wonder if there's any examples of institutions that have implemented domain of one's own and then ended up backing away from it, and why. You know, like what were the problems or challenges that they ran into? And you know, I certainly think part of the, you know, I asked the question about like what's the allure, because even to me, like domain of one's own just brings like thoughts of excitement and breaking the rules and creativity. And I think that's part of it. You know, when I asked like, you know, why does that get more student involvement? I think just the whole concept of it, like when people, you know, when you work with a faculty member to implement a blog in their class, maybe we tend to think more traditionally. Where domains of one's own, just in our minds, it's like you've suddenly taken away any parameters and you know, and so I wonder if just if that in itself allows us to, you know, open up a little bit more of the possibilities.
Sure, as long as you find a way, I think, of making it, you know, to the best of your support capabilities, making it a safe environment for them to play in, right? So I don't want to feel unsafe in the ways that that could happen, and just real savvy around whether or not to leave on comments or, you know, making those choices, I think, just requires some support. And every, you know, it feels to me like when things break, and it's such a, you know, it's such a learning moment for everyone if the learner is willing to share that. And again, that's a matter of safety. I'm not, you know, I broke this thing and I feel really stupid. I actually don't want to talk about it too much, right? So I think there needs to be a balance, but I love the idea of the, you know, not impeding and constraining creativity. Go nuts. Because some will be very far ahead of the curve. Some will be very beginning. Some will be, you know, already up to speed out the gate. So I think it just opens up so many more possibilities.
And I just want to make a little plug for the OLC Innovate Solution Design Summit, because that's where Lora Taub actually brought this initial project idea for the digital learning assistants. And it was at that workshop that Adam Kroom was there also, that we really, you know, worked with her, and her team won the competition. And as obviously they've went on to do great things. But, so check that out, Jenny, if you're thinking about doing that on your campus. It might be a good space to do some brainstorming and thinking about how to make that case on your campus.
Yeah, one of the things we're doing is working with, we have a student design experience lab that we're running, and we're deliberately recruiting students. We also have a student advisory council for eCampus Ontario. And I think that student leadership, those who we're in contact with, would be very excited about this idea of appropriately compensating students for helping one another to be better with digital. You know, I think there's so much about that that's really positive.
We actually have more about the student design experience lab. I'm intrigued by that.
So it's really a very playful space. Like, we're deliberately bringing in students, and we have hired a coordinator, and we have one of our staff members, Chris Fernland, is kind of leading and gathering the students. And we've had one or two at least kind of events where we're paying their way, we're hosting them, we're putting them up at a hotel overnight for a couple days, and we're really just exploring with them what, you know, how does technology mesh with what you're trying to learn at your colleges and universities. It's a mix of college and university students, which is great. So we're kind of getting a spectrum, and we're really trying to focus on what we call everyday students. And I really don't, you know, that's not my favorite way of saying that, but student leaders often are involved in these things, but regular students who are, you know, taking courses or technology enhanced courses are not always as involved. And so we're just trying to kind of get the man on the street feel for what do students really want out of online teaching and learning, fully online, blended, and technology enabled face-to-face. And so we're finding out a lot of great things. They have so many great ideas and so much energy. So far it's a really great project, but I really like the idea of kind of almost professionalizing a student role in technology on campus. I think that's amazing. And that has happened, you know, student workers have happened in all kinds of tech departments forever, right? But a digital learning associate or assistant or whatever we're calling them, I think is, you know, that is a really exciting prospect to me.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, we have student tech rovers, they're called. I think they're called tech rovers, but they just help faculty and staff, as far as I know, right? So they're hired, it's a job, it's fantastic. So it's a great opportunity for students but I'm not sure that they actually do any support for other students. And I think that's just a very cool model, because we've often talked at our campus about how faculty and staff have good tech support, but students, it's a little, you know, especially when they're learning new tools like WordPress or we have a wiki, you know, where's the student support coming from? And there isn't as much as one might like. So this is a very cool idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you know, it's not as much fun going around and fixing projectors in classrooms.
No,
as you
it's
might
just not.
imagine. It's
No.
not really. What might
Or
be
setting up my computer to the printer, you know, that's what
it's
they
actually
do.
standing in front of other students and or partnering and facilitating the learning of other students. You know, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
And more likely creating content that we don't even know how to communicate it to the students, and they're doing the job that we can't do.
Yeah, they could write documentation in a way that students would get.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'd do a great job of
really
that.
well. You can leave a trail. No, but it is awesome. I was just joking.
I have another
Wonderful.
meeting that I have to run to, but it was
Yeah,
great
go.
talking.
I'll let everyone wrap up. I'm going to hit the stop broadcast button here, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank
Another
you.
session later on with Martha
Great
Burtis.
session.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.